Your package will arrive by 8 p.m. today. I'm like, what the fuck? It turns my text messages into Star Wars scroll, which is automatically, which is really funny. But anyway, this is the Rembrandts podcast. I'm here. This is Rob, and with me, as usual, as always, is Jay, Jeff, and Earl. And we just got back from seeing Marvel's Avengers Infinity War Part 1. And not to be confused with our Part 1, I suggest that we do a little mini review, non-spoiler, or, and then something I can post tomorrow morning, like 2, 4, 5 minutes, whatever, that we don't talk about specifics. We talk about things we liked or didn't like.
Okay.
So Jeff just got up to get a drink. Jay's messing with his phone. Earl, why don't you go ahead and tell us, just spoiler-free, what you think, your feelings on the matter.
In 3 words, I love it.
Okay. That's helpful.
Well worth any money you spend on it.
Oh.
I think it was really good. Visually, I was concerned with that many characters all at once being on the same, 2 hour, 30-minute movie.
It was a long movie.
Would they lose that substance? And I think they did a really good job.
Okay.
I like the cinematography. I think the CGI, there was a lot of it, but at times it didn't feel overwhelming to me. I enjoyed the battle scenes. I liked how they transitioned from scene to scene, and we'll go into more detail when we do the spoiler version. But if you were to give it, I'd give it a 4.5.
Out of 4. Saying 4.5 out of 4. Yeah. That's awesome.
To me, I would say it's a 4.5. I mean, out of all the movies we've talked about in the last 3 or 4 years doing this.
Really?
There's a couple that rival it. Deadpool, obviously.
Well, yeah. Rival, definitely.
For the substance and content of a comic book, true comic book.
For me, Logan to be in there, too.
Logan was a good one. But, yeah, this steps up above even the Star Wars ones.
Not blasphemy.
Not Star Wars, but the last couple Star Wars movies that have come out.
Okay.
Actually, you know me.
I was going to ask you about that, because you and I geeked out hard over Last Jedi.
We did. And I enjoyed Last Jedi, but I think this actually surpassed that one from a comic book fanboy who loved that comic book in the 90s, this series.
The Infinity Gauntlets, the Infinity, what they call them, gems, the Infinity Gems.
So it was I can't remember the title of it, but essentially it was a series of comic books that dealt with Thanos in kind of this concept. So, yeah.
4.5 out of 4. That's outstanding.
Yeah, I'll give it that.
Okay. Jeff,
stand by that.
You're up.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to have to piggyback with him and say I love the movie. I thought it was great. And I'm going to also point out that you mentioned something that I was going to mention, that my biggest concern was they were bringing in so many different, they're bringing in the Thors and the rivalry going on there. And they're also bringing in the Guardians. And all these different movies and acting is a little bit different than all the others, meaning
they have their own flavor. Each one has its own flavor.
And my concern was, they're bringing them all together. Are they gonna mesh
under the title Avengers, no less? So is it going to be just another Avengers movie
with them all coming from different directors? And now you're going into this director.
Oh yeah,
which was brother directors.
Yeah, and the writing for this movie really blended everything perfectly. They had the right Thor to deal. How they were able to bring everybody together. I thought it was great. And that was one of my big concerns. There was a lot of funny lines in it. They definitely stuck to the funny people, like the Thor from Ragnarok.
Yeah.
And then Infinity or
Batista,
the Avengers and all those.
Yeah.
Or Guardians. Yeah, that was the perfect how to bring them into the Avengers, bringing those group together and then this group together, and then they meshed at the end, which I thought was beautifully done. So whoever was writing that must have thought about how do I get them all to bring them together.
The interplay with each character.
Yeah.
Who would bounce off of each other. Or work.
Yeah.
And I know that's what Earl
well.
was leaning on, and that's exactly.
And there were some of those scenes I was waiting for. Like, I want to see these two in the same room. It was
Groot,
awesome.
Spot on.
Oh man.
Spot on. Again, the way everything was so seamless, and I'm also becoming a big fan of the colorings they're using in these movies. And it started with I can't remember the name of the movie where they adding new colors like the purples and the pinks, and they did the same thing.
That's
in
probably
this,
one of the
like
Thors.
within Ragnarok.
Yeah,
with Ragnarok they did. Well, even before that, it was Suicide Squad.
So okay, yeah.
And then they did it with
filmmaking
Ragnarok,
in general. Yeah.
And then Ragnarok filtered in a little bit, not overwhelming, into this. But I like how I managed to forget that some of those guys weren't around in the other, even though I completely knew it.
Yeah.
And then they brought it up. Oh, you've been gone a while, so let me catch you up.
It's
And
good for exposition.
Yeah, but you instantly don't think of that, and I love that they remind you, hey, that last one, even though we had talked about it in the podcast previous. But yeah, when it comes down to it, I'm not going to get long-winded because we're going to go into a bunch of little individual stuff. I loved it. I thought it was great. And that's really much at where I'm standing with that.
Now, for Jay, he walked out. You walked out of the theater muttering something. What was that you said?
Oh.
What the fuck was that?
What was that?
What was that?
What was that all about?
What was that all about?
And of course, we all Okay, Jason. Without giving up too many details, what's your question? You've watched all the movies up to this point.
Oh, I don't get to review it. Like.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This is your opinion.
All right, so.
Without being spoiled.
I disagree with you nerds.
Whatever, dude.
Probably was. I thought they pushed on the comedy way too much.
Really?
I think that.
Really? Because I saw you laughing the whole time.
No, that was not me. That was him.
Well, I was sitting next to you. I saw you.
There's a few chuckles, yeah, but
You're expecting more dark?
One way or the other. Obviously with Guardians, they had more comedy, and it was more natural. Same with Thor. They put more comedy, but it was more natural with some of these movies. And this one, I think it was pushed. Just the way it was. It didn't seem like they naturally had the jokes there, so they just pushed them in to kind of make it ha-ha funny. And this wasn't a movie that's really supposed to be funny. Yeah, every superhero movie, you got zingers in there and whatnot, but a lot of it seemed pushed.
Okay. And other than the humor, what about the story in general for you?
There was a lot of build up. I mean, you're talking 15, 20 years build up to the story.
15, 20 characters.
Yeah, 15,
all to be
20,
serviced.
20
yeah.
characters. As far as the story, I think it's a great idea. It's a concept that's been around forever. What do you do if you have too much? It's the reason why we all go to war is over resources. So, what do you do with the growing population that can't sustain itself? It's the ultimate ethical question.
Okay, now we're getting into specifics.
Well, you asked me about the story.
Okay, so why don't you give us your spoiler-free review, and then we'll because believe me, I'm chomping at the bit to dive into the specifics too.
Well, no, I wasn't going into specifics.
Okay.
I think it was a great story and a great way that they put out. If I say any more, I will actually give out spoilers.
Yeah.
But it's
So aside from the humor, didn't make it a perfect movie for you.
No.
Did you enjoy the movie for what it was?
Which is usually your shtick. Like that's usually your thing.
I spent a lot of money on this movie. And,
I know you did. Yeah, you did.
You did.
And,
Jay, okay, let's stop right there. Jay got 3 sets of the popcorn and soda collector's item, whatever, cups. And they all come with little figures, and I'll put pictures on later, little figures of Thanos and what. We're only missing one, apparently. We're missing Spider-Man.
Groot.
And Groot, so we're missing 2. Because Jeff went to get one, and he's like, fuck that, it's too expensive.
Well, I only wanted one aspect. You had to buy the whole package.
To get
I'm
the,
like,
I know.
I'm good.
So that was like $90
it was money well spent based on the fact that I invested so much money to get to this point, like everybody else in the world has.
Yeah. Well, plus it's going to be in our collection. Like the Star Wars cup that we brought back last time is still here. All the other things that I brought back are all in the room and whatnot. So yeah, it's part of our collection now.
Yeah.
Would you go see this movie again in the theater?
No.
Would you see it again, rent it, or on DVD?
No.
Really?
Such a liar.
So you wouldn't do a
Such a
Marvel's
liar.
marathon and
Okay,
say, screw
that's
this
not-
movie?
Okay. They would. Earl's getting bent out of shape here. Let's back up.
No,
Get a seatbelt for this guy.
In all fairness,
sure.
I don't buy DVDs and watch movies like that.
Yeah, you're not a repeat watcher, really.
No, not really. I mean, if something like Deadpool, like I've watched a million times just because
That's our Sunday morning go-to after this.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing is that I watched Deadpool the other day because it came on TBS.
Oh no!
Like,
Deadpool's on regular TV.
yeah,
now?
on regular
How?
TV. Exactly. I was curious. How are they gonna pull this? I watched it because I was curious. How are they gonna pull this off? But if it flies by, it might catch my eye. But usually the Marvel movies, the DC movies, they don't really catch me. There's
It's
only
funny
a few.
because
that
there's
do.
several of the Marvel movies I've watched over and over and over.
Oh,
and
me
over.
too. For
I
years.
own them.
Yeah, I own all of them. Yeah.
You know, real quick, and this is kind of back to, this is what DC and Marvel, the DC needs to look at Marvel and say, That's how you're supposed to bring them all together.
Right.
Not throw them in our face at the beginning. I'm not going to get angry right now. I've had a little RC in me, all right, and it's flowing through my blood. But you brought it up, and it started clicking in my head, and I started steaming in my ears. But remember, that was my biggest complaint with DC was threw everybody together in one movie, and you're supposed to go, well, come on now. I mean, how?
No build up.
There was nothing. And DC has got to look at Marvel and be like,
Marvel's done the slow roll.
That's what
They
we've
had
been saying the whole time.
the long-term plan.
Well, they threw the dice first.
This goes back, but this goes back to what I said before. They're trying to catch up in 1 or 2 movies, and it's failing them. Right?
Can't do that.
Wonder Woman, they're starting to do it right.
Yeah.
But they should have brought Batman before they did the Batman versus, because I don't know.
But how many times are you gonna tell that backstory?
Well, after this movie.
Okay, we talk about DC or Marvel again.
Yeah. Okay.
We're talking about DC, I think. We're talking about.
Because I just watched Justice League last week for the first time.
Did you enjoy it?
I did.
It's not bad. It's just bad
good.
compared to
not,
Avengers.
It's not bad.
No,
That's
it's
right.
just not as
But
good as Avengers.
Because they didn't sit there and rehash the backstory over and over and over.
Right.
I don't need that.
Right. But my point being is DC tried to throw in one movie all these characters at once with no build up like what's been going on with Marvel for the past. Because I do know. Well, let's move on. Because there's some other things.
Let me knock my spoiler free out, and then we'll move on to the specifics. I love the movie. I agree with Earl. I'd say 4.5. Absolutely. I still, for me, liked Last Jedi a tad more, but that's because of a love that has nothing to do. I did not grow up.
Did we both?
I gave that a 5. I don't know about you, but I gave it a 5.
Yeah, I think I did.
The reason, but for me, is Star Wars holds nostalgia more for me because, as I said before, I was not a Marvel kid. I did not grow up with the Infinity Gem stuff, so that's also part of why DC is so disappointing for me because I did grow up with those stories, and those are the ones that I know in and out. And in preparation for watching this today, I watched Justice League this morning, and while watching Avengers, you guys are right. I looked at it and said, okay, this is what Justice League should have been.
Right.
Because Thanos and Darkseid are obvious analogs to each other.
Yeah,
and
they even talked about that.
It's in the battles. It was almost like, well, those look like parademons. There's stuff that just reminded me of Darkseid and Apocalypse. But then I reminded myself, well, the comics did that for years. Thanos and Darkseid were kind of even up, and I'd like to see a crossover between those two. As far as spoiler free, I get what you're saying about the humor, but I think it was injected. But I think there's a reason because Civil War was so dark, not too dark, not like DC dark, but it was dark for Marvel. And Winter Soldier was dark for Marvel. And they kind of had to, and now they swung back with Ragnarok. They swung back with Guardians 2. And I think they were trying to mix those two things together. And I think that, and we'll get to specifics later, I think that Tony embodied the seriousness of what was going on. And the comic characters like Quill and Batista and all those funny characters were allowed to continue to be funny. But I think that Thor especially was in the middle. He played the dramatic and he played the funny because he just come off Ragnarok. And the total straight was obviously Captain America and T'Challa and all, those guys were all totally playing it straight. The pivotal character for me, and it's going to be the pivotal character I think in the end is the prediction, is Bruce Banner. Yes. He's the pivotal character for me, and we'll get to that. Now, this is officially the end of the spoiler free. I will post this. Now, spoilers. We are going to talk about